The American nation cannot, must not, and will not permit the establishment of another communist government.
Banana is my favorite fruit.
My favorite fruit is banana.
What do you guys think about bananas?
Bananas are a favorite breakfast fruit in every home.
Oh, of course I had bananas in my cereal when I was young for breakfast.
I like my bananas with like the chocolate covered nuts on them. Those are pretty good.
Here's a banana with nuts.
I'm to take a banana.
The year is 1899. Through manifest destiny, the United States has established themselves as a world power. A merger between the Boston Fruit Company and Minor Cooper Keith's struggling rail company established the United Fruit Company. Their goal was to make the banana the cheapest fruit in the U.S. The company grew so quickly in Latin America, it became known as El Pupo, or the octopus. United Fruit obtained a transport monopoly in Latin America. If you wanted to move fruit over land, you did it with UFC. The company controlled all major ports in and out of Latin America, allowing for extreme wealth and control. As their political power grew, banana workers were at the full mercy of their UFC employers, controlling every aspect of their life. The UFC fully controlled these people, and therefore they had all the power they needed to fulfill their interests, leading them into a banana republic. A banana republic is a politically unstable society with an economy dependent on one export. The government, headed by Teddy Roosevelt, protected American interests in the Caribbean using military force. Workers had gone on strike a decade before the massacre, but little had changed. In October of 1928, Colombian workers issued a list of demands to the United Fruit Company, including wage increases, 6-day work weeks, hygienic dormitories, a direct contract with the company, compensation for worker incidents, improved hospital services, and the elimination of company store and payment in credit slips instead of real money. After the UFC denied these demands, a strike began. The UFC responded with the unprovoked killing of United Fruit Company workers and their supporters in Cienega, Magdalena Department, Colombia. Federal troops under the command of Colombian General Carlos Cortez Villegas on December 6, 1928. 1,400 workers and their families filled the town square and were faced by 300 soldiers. Shortly before midnight, Cortez Villegas received a telegram containing Decree No. 1, the government's official declaration of the state of siege in Magdalena. At 1:30 a.m. on December 6th, the crowd was ordered to disperse. 5 minutes later, followed by 3 short bugle blasts, soldiers fired machine guns into the crowd. Initial reports noted that 8 or 9 people had been killed, while 20 were injured. Violence continued for the next few days as the military attempted to kill the Union leaders who survived the first attack. With orders to spare no ammunition, the exact number of deaths is still disputed, but estimates range from 47 to 2,000. A telegram from the U.S. Department of State to Santa Marta Consul, dated December 8, 1928, approximately 2 days after the massacre. The Legion at Bogota reports that categorical orders have been given the authority at Santa Marta to protect all American interests. The department does not desire to send a warship to Santa Marta. Keep the department informed of all developments by telegraph. The following is a telegram from Santa Marta Consul to the U.S. Secretary of State, dated December 9th, 1928, 1 day following the first telegram. Troop train from the Banana Zone has just arrived in Santa Marta with all American citizens. No Americans killed or wounded. Guerrilla warfare is now continuing in the zone, but military forces are actively engaged in clearing the district of communists. We were reclaiming a just salary and living conditions that were adjusted to our needs, and United and Cortez Villegas gave us bullets, murdered us, and brought us martial law. Carlos Villegas, striker. The military fired against everyone, anywhere, without even asking what someone was doing. That's why bodies were found everywhere. Sixtino Opinion Nuez, striker. Following the massacre, public outrage continued to grow, weakening the government of President Miguel Abadia Mendez, contributing to his eventual downfall. The event also fueled anti-imperialist sentiment, as many Colombians saw the United Fruit Company as a symbol of foreign exploitation. In the long term, the massacre became a rallying point for labor rights movements, inspiring future protests against corporate and government abuses. In the long term, the Banana Massacre played a key role in shaping labor laws and policies across Latin America. Though the process was gradual and met with resistance, the massacre inspired labor movements that ultimately led to the establishment of stronger unions and the passage of labor reforms in countries like Colombia. For example, in the 1930s, Colombia introduced labor laws that recognized the right to unionize and improve working conditions, though enforcement was uneven. The massacre also shifted the state's role in labor disputes, pushing for the creation of regulatory frameworks. However, the effectiveness of these frameworks often varied, with labor laws being inconsistently appealed, especially in regions dominated by foreign corporations. The story of the Banana Massacre is not just a chapter in history, it's a warning. The United Fruit Company didn't just grow bananas, it grew power, influence, and control, shaping entire nations to serve its own interests. From its founding in 1899, UFC expanded rapidly, monopolizing the banana trade and embedding itself deep into the economics of Central America. By the 1930s, it owned millions of acres of land and had absorbed its competition, becoming more than a company. It became a political force. Meanwhile, in America, bananas became a staple, their price kept artificially low by a system built on the backs of unpaid and overworked laborers. While Americans enjoyed their fruit, workers in Colombia paid the hidden cost: long hours, brutal conditions, and no rights. When these workers finally stood up demanding fair wages and humane treatment, they were not met with negotiations, but with violence. The massacre of 1928 revealed the dark side of unchecked corporate power and willingness of governments to prioritize profit over people. The Colombian government, under pressure from the UFC and the US, chose to silence its own citizens rather than challenge American interests. Yet in the aftermath of this massacre, the workers' struggle did not disappear. Their determination sparked a movement, a fight for labor rights that would echo for generations. This tragedy serves as a stark reminder of the delicate balance between economic growth and human rights. When corporations and governments prioritize wealth over workers, history has shown that it is the people who suffer. The Banana Massacre forces us to ask, what is the true cost of the things we take for granted, and how do we ensure that the pursuit of profit never again comes at the expense of justice? The legacy of the Banana Massacre didn't end in 1928. The workers' struggle forced governments and corporations to confront their responsibilities, leading to labor reforms that shape the way companies operate today. In the years that followed, laws protecting workers' rights, such as right to fair wages and safer working conditions, became a global conversation. The massacre exposed the dangers of unchecked corporate power, setting a precedent for labor movements across Latin America and beyond. Today, the principles workers fought for, fair treatment, accountability, and corporate responsibility, continue to influence how multinational corporations engage with labor forces around the world. The bloodshed of 1928 serves as a stark reminder that progress in workers' rights is often won at a terrible cost, but it also proves that resistance can create a lasting image. Because in the end, the story of this Banana Massacre isn't about bananas. It's about power, responsibility, and enduring fight for human dignity.